All right, good morning. Sorry for the delay. Had a slight technical issue. This is VirtualPBX admin training. You should be seeing the login page on your screen here. For your reference, the URL for that is dash.virtualpbx.com. If you're on the VirtualPBX website, if you mouse over support, you'll see a login link on the left side. You can click on that, and that will get you here. Your username is your email address. If you're the person who signed up for the account, it's the email address you used to sign up the account with. Otherwise, your admin created your user and hopefully used an email address you're aware of. Password would have been generated for the system or by your system admin. And the account name is typically your company name or business name. Then down here, we've got the option to remember you, so that way you don't have to keep typing everything in. And also a forgot info link. And then you click sign in. And Dash does take a little bit of time to load up here, but then you get to the dashboard page. Now, if you've just signed up and this is the first time logging in, the system will come up with the Dash wizard. Basically covers like some account level information. Once you close out of that, then you're here in the dashboard. And so here the dashboard is just a snapshot of your system. You see your total users here is 21 on this particular account. Dash plans are based on the number of users you have on the account. So the more users you have, the more you're going to be spending. Then down below users, we've got total devices, and then the breakdown between types, so soft phone, cell phone, VoIP phone, etc. And then at the very bottom here in that red numbers, you see the total unregistered devices. Those are your VoIP phones that are not connected, i.e. Dash doesn't see them as connected, so we can't send calls to those devices. And basically that means, double check the cords, make sure they're plugged in properly, make sure things have power, double check your network, etc. Over here towards the top right, we've got your main numbers, or main numbers in this case. So you have multiple phone numbers. These are numbers that your customers are dialing on their phones to get to you, right, to get to your phone system. These numbers will all have the same main greeting, and they'll all have the same routing. Next, we got a fax box number. This allows me to receive faxes on this particular phone number. You can also have a conference number listed here if you're going to make use of the conference bridge. Total numbers, 35. So this is a lot of phone numbers on an account. Dash plans include between 1 to 3 phone numbers typically on most plans. That's part of your monthly bill. Once you go over that allotment, then it's $4.99 per month per phone number. International numbers might be more expensive depending on the country they're in, and there is usually a cost to acquire an international number. If you are interested in international numbers, you're going to need to email porting, P-O-R-T-I-N-G, at virtualpbx.com. And the porting team will need to know the city and country that you are interested in. They'll let you know of any special requirements. Like Germany, for example, requires proof of presence within the city that you're requesting a phone number in. And usually a utility bill will suffice for that. Other countries are much stricter. Others are much looser. All right, breakdown of the numbers, assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number is a number that you are using, right? So this is a number that goes someplace on your system, whether that's going to a user directly, going to a ring group, an ACD queue, or your fax box number or your main number, etc. Spare numbers, these are just numbers on your account, but you're not using them. They're not going anywhere. Now, you would still be charged for them because they are on the account. No one else can use them. And you could make use of them at any time, right? You can assign that and be using it, and we don't know when that's going to happen. Right? We can't predict that. Then we've got this breakdown between, in this case, USDID and US toll-free. You could also have international listed here. Next, we've got the downloadable company directory. notice that this is only shows 11 users, even though I have a total of 21 users on the account. So when I create users, or when an admin creates a user on the account, they have the option to include them in the user directory, and that's where this comes into play. You can change that at any time, so you can always add someone into the directory later. And then you've got a download link here. Next up, we have this long alphanumeric string. This is your account ID or account number. Typically, when you call into support, for example, we're not going to ask you for this number. We're going to ask you for your company name. It's a lot easier and faster and less confusing. But if you ever email or go into chat support or just chat in general with our company, you can put that in, and we can look you up with that number. We have your account realm right here. This is used for a couple different things. So first, it'd be used as part of programming a third-party VoIP device, whether that is a soft phone application like Xlite from Counterpath. You would need that information. And you would also use it to program like a third-party VoIP device, so like a phone that doesn't show up under our auto-provisioning list, which we'll be getting to shortly. The other thing it's used for is emailing, or well, we use email to fax. To send a fax out, you create an email. In the to field of that email, you put +1 area code and phone number. That's the fax number you're faxing to. The @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you attach a PDF or TIFF and send the file out. And then at the bottom here, this is your store discount code for just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount on items in our web store. You can click on the link up here to get to the store, and you can buy VoIP phones or network equipment, for example. All right, since we're up top here, caller ID. This is your default company caller ID. It's going to make use of your main numbers. And then first up, we've got your company caller ID name or CNAME. This is restricted to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click on Save Changes, this information gets sent to the carriers who support CNAME, and then they update their servers. This can take roughly 3 business days. Can be faster, can be longer, but usually right around 3. A couple things to keep in mind about CNAME. Not every carrier supports it. So if a call happens to route through it, your CNAME information will not go through to your destination. Even for the carriers who do support CNAME, it's not a priority for them, right? Carriers, telecom, their primary purpose is connect a call, right? Then the next thing is, okay, we get the caller ID so you know who's calling you, at least by the phone number. And then lastly, it's the CNAME information. So even for those carriers who do support it, if they have heavier than expected call volume, it's the first thing they drop, right? Because again, they're trying to make sure the call connects. Obviously, if they're having an outage or some kind of maintenance, that would also prevent potentially the call getting through, but definitely the CNAME information from going through. And then one last little caveat. If you're ever calling someone who already has your phone number programmed into their phone, whatever they have programmed on that phone will take precedence over whatever we send. All right. Next, we have the company emergency address, or E911. This is the default address for your VoIP phones, so that if someone picks up a VoIP phone to dial 911, this is the address we send to emergency services. So, one, you want to make sure this is a valid address, and it's the correct address. And the other thing to keep in mind is if you have employees in different locations, you can have different addresses for each VoIP device, right? This is just the default. And then any changes you make, you click Save Changes. It takes a little while for Dash to update, and then you're ready to go. All right, next up we've got hold music. So hold music on Dash, this is when a call has come in and gotten to a user picks up their VoIP phone, they start talking, and then they press the hold button on their phone. This is the file that will play by default. So you can upload your own file by clicking on Upload here, finding the file on your computer, and then you press the little upload button there. the little up arrow icon. Things to keep in mind. Dash will accept a .wav, .wav, or .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. You want to make sure that that file is recorded in mono, not in stereo. Right? So when you're listening to it over the phone, you have one speaker. That's why it needs to be recorded in mono, because if you upload a stereo file, you try to get 2 audio streams through one speaker, you either get nothing, or you're going to get a lot of static, and you might hear a little bit of whatever music or message you have playing. And then again, click on Save Changes. And you're going to hear me repeat several times the mono, the .wav, .mp3, just so you know. And next up, we have hours. This is actually part of the main numbers sequence, but this is basically so you can say set your custom office hours, or when you're open. So if you're open 24 hours, you're set, because by default, so when you first sign up, the default is you're open 24 hours. Basically, your system is ready to accept a call, right? Or you can just go to custom office hours and say, hey, put a check mark in front of each day of the week that you're open. Then in the boxes to the right, you select the times that you're open. These are in 24-hour or military time. So like in this case, we're closed on Wednesday. You also have at the very bottom here an option here if you're closed for lunch, right? So if your whole building or whole office, everyone takes lunch at the same time, you can put a check mark here and then put your lunch hours in. That way, automatically, your system goes into lunch mode when lunchtime hits. All right, office holidays, you put a check mark to say that you're closed for office holidays. And then over here on the right, you click Add Holiday. You select single day, date range, or advanced. Single day, pretty straightforward. Like we have here, President's Day. You put in the date. You give it a name. Put in the date. You would click on Save Changes, and you're closed on that particular date. Date range, like we have down here for Christmas, December 22nd through December 26th. Again, you put in the month and the dates. You click Save Changes. One thing to keep in mind about date range, since we're coming up on it, is for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. You'll notice here in the holiday sections, we don't have a year indicator. So if you put in a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, the system just puts you in closed mode all the time because it thinks you're closed all year. So for that particular sequence of days, we recommend just using single day, right? So one entry for New Year's Eve, one entry for New Year's Day, and then you're clear. All right, advanced, we have an example up here, which is basically the second Monday of March, we're closed. All right, company retreat. All right, incoming call handling. So this is how your system handles calls that are coming to your main numbers. All right, then we've got these little sub-tabs here. So this is the open hours, which defaults you to. We have after hours, and because I said I'm closed on holidays, we have a holidays tabs. If on the office hours strategy, right, I had said we are closed for lunch, I'd also have a lunch tab here. Now, each of these have the same options. So call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist. If you click on the virtual receptionist link there, pops up a new window, and you see on the left you have your main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through the phone system, right? To get to different departments or voicemail boxes, to a particular person if you assign them that way, etc. Basically, you click on Add Route, and normally the pull downs work. I'm guessing my streaming software is blocking that. But then you choose basically 0 through 9, and then to the right you say, okay, where am I putting this call to, right? So I've got users. I can send them to the directory. What do we got here? We got specific devices, so I can send it to a particular phone. I can send it to a media file. So basically, I can send it to a greeting of some sort. Disadvantage of sending it to a greeting is after that greeting plays, the call ends. Likewise, if you send it straight to a device, if that device does not have voicemail, eventually the call will end and the person doesn't get to leave a message. Whereas if you send it to a user, it goes to, at least to the dash voicemail box. Down here we've got ring groups, which are basically like departments, and then ACD queues, which have more advanced routing options than a ring group. Over to the right, you've got your greeting options. First up, we've got text-to-speech. Basically, you type in a greeting, you click Update, and it's good to go. You can upload your own file. Again, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, 1 megabyte in size. You can choose from existing recordings. So if you've already uploaded several recordings, you can go back to one. So like, you might be having a special Thanksgiving recording. Well, after Thanksgiving ends, you can switch back to your normal recording. Same for like Christmas or New Year's. You have the option to record over the phone. So this is with using a registered VoIP phone, meaning a phone you've added to the account. You would pick up the VoIP phone's handset and dial your main number, and then enter the PIN number displayed here, and then the system will guide you through recording it over the phone. Now, if you already have a greeting in place, like say you put a text-to-speech one in place to get things going, and then came back later and said, I want to record it with my own voice, you're not going to be prompted to record it over the phone because you already have a greeting in place. But when you hear the greeting in place that's going, you can enter the PIN number. The system will interrupt that greeting and then start walking you through recording over the phone. And next little thing, for this, so this PIN number is only going to work for my open hours, and my system has to be in open hours for that PIN number to work. Right? So if I want to change my holiday greeting, I have to put the system in holiday mode, then I can call in and record a holiday greeting. All right, then we have professional recording services. So we've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. They offer various packages or just single recording options. They have roughly 100 voice actors to choose from, male and female. They have different versions of English. They have Spanish. They have French. Actually, they have different versions of both French and Spanish as well. So you can do multilingual greetings. They also have packages that include mixing in a script with hold music. So you can have a hold music treatment as well. They handle their own delivery, which is by email. Basically email the file, and then you can upload the file yourself. They also handle their own billing from there. Next up, we've got right here your settings, number of missed dials, or number of retrials on missed dial. Basically, the person calling in, they keep hitting a wrong option. How many times did they get to do that? Basically, how many times did they hear your greeting play? And then in this case, I'm ending the call. You can have the option to set up a default route. Which is not showing, unfortunately. But basically, that means like if you have, in this case, one missed dial, you can have the call then send them to a particular person or voicemail box so they can leave a message. I don't typically recommend the default route on your main menu because of robodialers being so prevalent. Basically, that means you give them more time to be on your system because they'll leave a message. All right, next tab, or option here, call comes in. In this case, I'm having it ring to Bob, and then it goes to virtual receptionist. Basically, I'm giving Bob a chance to answer the call first. If Bob is not able to answer, then it goes to the virtual receptionist, so the inbound caller can hit a menu option. Right? I can also select a ring group here, for example, so a group of people. Right? So you have a receptionist group or your front desk group of people. Any one of them can answer the call. If they're not able, then it goes to virtual receptionist. The next step, again, you give someone a chance to answer the call or a group of people. If they're not able to pick up, then it goes to a particular voicemail box. And then one thing to keep in mind is each one of these tabs, right, they have these same options, but they're different for that particular option. So your virtual receptionist, for example, once it pops up, you'll see is different. Has less options. You can have a different greeting play, etc. Oops. Did not mean to do that one. All right. And then we've got your main fax box number. So you can always unassign your main fax box number. You can always assign a number from here or purchase number specifically for that. Now, unfortunately, this is a test account, so I can't edit the fax box properly. But for you, when you log in, if you edit the fax box, you'll have two fields that you can enter. The first one is who's getting the emails to let you know you got a fax. And in that email, it's going to include an attachment, a PDF, of the fax that came in. All right, so you want to get that set. The other field is if you have your own company domain, so abcdogwalking.com. You could put that, put the @ symbol, abcdogwalking.com in that second field, click Save. Then anyone with that email domain can send a fax out, right? They can then create an email, +1 area code, and then the @ symbol, your account realm, attach a PDF, send it off. They don't have to be a user on your account to send a fax as long as you have an email domain. All right, numbers. Numbers shows the numbers you have on your account and where they're going. And you also have an option here for spare numbers. Show your spare numbers. If you ever want to get rid of a number, it needs to be a spare number first. So that means you would go to Numbers and Use. Say, okay, I've got all these numbers. We're going to go to Hatake here. Under Users, here's Hatake. Here's his number. So I say, okay, you don't need that number anymore. You're not using it. I unassign it. I click Save. All right, he says, oh, you've been unassigned. Oops. Go to Numbers. And that 918 number shows up right here. And then I have the option to delete it here. Delete the number. It says, yes, successful deletion. Continue. And it's no longer on my account. I'm no longer being charged for that number. In terms of adding numbers, you click on the Buy, and you've got options for local or toll-free. So for local, you enter in an area code. Actually, here, let's go with, oops. System will show you the available numbers. You click Add, and you can add multiple. You click on Buy Numbers. System is double checking to make sure it is available and working properly, basically. Then activates it, and it's all on your account as a spare number. And then you would assign it to wherever you need it to go. The other option here is to port a number. If you click on this, it'll start the port process. Basically, you just follow the on-screen instructions. The main things we need when porting a number is a filled out letter of agency, or LOA. You can download a copy within this port process as well as on the VirtualPBX.com website. It's under support for both vConsole and Dash. It's going to be on the right-hand side under Forms. If you're porting a local number, so non-toll-free, we also need a recent copy of the bill. If for some reason you're not able to upload the documents or follow the whole port process, you get an error or something weird happens, whatever, you can always just send those documents to porting at VirtualPBX.com saying, hey, I need to port this number. We get the documents, we submit that, we wait for a response from your current carrier. Hopefully they tell us everything's fine, here's when we're going to release the number to you. We let you then know, hey, your port's going to complete on this date. Now, if your current carrier rejects the port for any reason, they'll tell us, hey, we're rejecting the port. They're also going to tell us why. We then communicate that to you, and you're probably going to have to double check with your current carrier about whatever information, whether there's a wrong address, they have the wrong name, wrong company name, or whatever. Hopefully you can get that straightened out, and then we resubmit. Ports can take anywhere from 1 day, which is very rare, up to 6 weeks, which is also very rare. The typical average for a local number, for example, is about a week to 2 weeks. Toll-free numbers are about 3 to 5 business days, give or take. All right, users. This shows you all the users on your account. To add a user, you click on the Add User button at the top here, and then you enter their name, and then their email address, which they use to log in, and then you create a password. Now, each user has to have a unique email address. Whether or not that email address is valid on your side doesn't matter, but the system wants them to be each different. Now, obviously, you would prefer that each person has a unique email address that works, so that way if they need a password recovery, it gets sent to the right place. Now, on this account, I started off with extension 1000, and so the system, by default, is going to say, oh, your next available extension is this number, in this case, 1019. But if I wanted to, I can put a different extension number here, right? I can put 3252. Or make it 3000 because this is a separate department, and I want them to have their own extension sequence. All right, so then you've got these options here below. First option, which is automatically checked by default, create a voicemail box for the user, right? That voicemail box that's created at this time is intrinsically tied to the user. It's essentially like their primary voicemail box. If you end up deleting the voicemail box or not creating it here, you end up having to delete the user and recreate them with the voicemail box at the same time to have that intrinsic tie established. Here's your option includes in the user directory. And again, you can always change this later. Send emails to an alternate address. This would be in addition to the email address you're saying for the login, or you're using for the login, excuse me. And then the most important one, boom, send a credential to the user. So that way your user has their login information. If you don't check it, they don't get an email, so then they're not sure how to log in. Right, they'd have to use the forgot info link. And then either create user or create and add another one, which puts back this field blanks, so you can add a second person. All right. Now, if you click on a person, clicking on Bob here, pull up their information. Again, you can change their name. You can change their credentials here. Next up, you can change the voicemail box PIN. Now, if your users are going to be using VoIP phones, you don't have to set a PIN for them. They can simply pick up their VoIP phone that's on their user, hit *97 on the VoIP phone, which is a feature code. It'll log them into the voicemail and into the voicemail system, and the system will prompt them to enter their extension and then walk them through setting a PIN themselves. Now, if your users are using a cell phone or a landline, you will need to create a PIN for them, so that way when they call in, they can enter the PIN to get access to voicemail, and then they can set up their voicemail box greeting, for example, or check the voicemail. Again, the option here is send emails to an additional address, so like, oh, Bob wants it also sent to his personal Gmail account. Can add that there. Here's the option to include in the user directory. You can uncheck it so he's no longer showing up in the user directory. Over here, this tells you the type of user, right? So it's either user or admin. So you can change any user to become an admin, which means they can do everything I'm talking about here. You can also change an admin back to a user. The only caveat I say here is if you're the only person on the account, do not change yourself to a user. Just keep yourself as an admin. Then we've got your time zone for the user. Language, which is English, French, or Russian. Ringing timeout. So we don't control how many times a device will ring, right? You're like, oh, I want this phone to ring 4 times. Like, we don't control that. What we do control is how much time we try to reach out to that device. By default, 20 seconds. You can change that up to whatever you want it to be. The main caveat is with cell phones, you want to make sure this is at least 30 seconds, if not 45 to a minute. And that's simply because it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a VoIP phone that's connected through Ethernet or to a landline, right? Those phones are only in one spot, whereas cell phone, you're moving around. Every time a call gets routed to your cell phone, your cell carrier has to bounce it off several cell towers to find you and send the call to you. Your main extension number for your basically associated with your VoIP phone, and thus if you have a voicemail, it'll light up the little lamp on your VoIP phone so you know, hey, I have voicemail. And then caller ID privacy, which is default. All right, extensions. You can have users with multiple extension numbers if you want. Like a manager who, like, if you have any turnover in your company and then the manager just wants to make sure voicemail boxes are covered at least until they're either reused or deleted. Again, users can have their own phone numbers, goes straight to the user. Doesn't have to go through the main menu, etc., or the virtual receptionist. And then we got devices. You have your choices of adding from a spare device, meaning the device is already on the account, or you can add a new device. First device type is a SIP phone. This is a type of VoIP phone, right? So VoIP is Voice over Internet Protocol. That's the generic term for making and receiving calls over the Internet. SIP phone is a particular type of VoIP phone. There are other types of VoIP phones. SIP is, I think it's the Session Interface Protocol. I might have that wrong. But anyway, so what you're seeing here are these are manufacturers that support, or that we support, what's called auto provisioning, which basically for you means very little manual setup. You find your manufacturer, and then you find your particular phone. Once you select the phone, there'll be two fields at the bottom. Basically, you name the device, Bob's phone, for example, and then you enter the MAC address of the phone. This is usually a sticker on the back. Hopefully it's labeled MAC. Sometimes it's labeled a serial number. It's an alphanumeric string of, I believe it's 12 characters. Then you click on Create Device. Now, as far as Dash is concerned, you're done. However, on the VoIP phone itself, you need to go into the phone's web UI. You need to adjust a URL within that, and we have instructions on our VirtualPBX.com website. And what that does is basically the phone will then reach out to the Internet to that particular URL that you inputted, connects. That URL says, oh, we recognize this MAC address. Here's the config file you need. Phone says, hey, great, I need to reboot. Reboots. Then it shows up, connects to your Dash account, and it's ready to work. And you can basically use every feature that's built into that VoIP phone. That's the advantage of auto provisioning. All right. Cell phone and landline, basically the same, even though they have separate headings. You give it a name, and then you put +1 area code and phone number. You click on Create Device, and let me get to someone who has a cell phone here so you can see the options. So you go Advanced and Options. So this is the default setup for a cell phone or a landline, actually. So Dash call comes in, then Dash will reach out to your cell phone or landline. Your phone rings, you pick up. You initially will hear the system comment saying, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. By pressing 1, you're letting the system know, yes, there's a person here to take the call, and it connects the call. If you don't like that, or what you're actually doing is sending the call to an automated answering service, which can't press 1 because it's automated, then what you would want to do is put a check mark here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, so that gets rid of having to press 1 when the call gets sent to that device. So your automated answering service just picks up. We treat it like a connected call. You're happy. Now, if you're actually using a cell phone and not going to an answering service or an answering service of some type, an automated answering service, right? So calls going right to your cell phone. You don't pick up because you can't for whatever reasons. You're in the middle of a meeting, what have you, or you just simply don't hear it ring, right? Your cell phone voicemail will pick up. We still treat that like a connected call. So call goes to your cell phone's voicemail. Some people love that. Some people don't want that to happen at all. And that's what that particular option controls. All right. The second one here, keep original caller ID. What this means is when a call comes to you through Dash on your cell phone, you're going to see the inbound caller's phone number, right? Their caller ID. Now, if you don't want that, because you're like, I have no idea who's calling me, you can uncheck this. What happens instead is the VirtualPBX phone number on the account that person dialed, right? So your main number, that will show up as a caller ID. So that way on your cell phone, you're like, oh, this is a work call. You don't necessarily have to worry about it being a robo-dialer or some telemarketer. And again, any changes you make, you just click on Save Changes. All right, soft phone. Soft phone is an application originally designed to work on computers, but now also works on smartphones. Basically, to let you make and receive calls over the internet. Right? So software application phone, soft phone. This is a warning, just making sure that your E911 is as accurate as you can make it. And then here, we default you to using a third-party soft phone, right? So you're using the application from someone other than us. X-like from Counterpath as my typical default answer. You give it a name, and then you use the SIP username, your SIP password. Click on the box to see what it is. And then your realm to program that application to work with us. Then that way when you start it up on your computer, for example, you can make and receive calls from there. Now, if you're going to use the VirtualPBX soft phone application, what you want to do is right down here where it says Use Third-Party Application and it's grayed out, you click on that. Now it says, hey, use VirtualPBX application. You give it a device name. You click on Create Device. What this does is the system then emails this particular user, because I created it on the user page, their login and password for that soft phone. And so, for instance, like, oh, I'm just going to put it on my iPhone. You go to the App Store, download it, use that login information. You can then make and receive calls on that app on your cell phone. Now, we do have a desktop version of the soft phone for Windows and Mac OS. However, those versions do require a licensing fee, which you can handle that through the web store, or you can contact billing saying, hey, this is what I want, and they can get that taken care of for you. The web phone is also kind of soft phone. Go ahead and close that. So this allows you to make and receive calls from your computer using Chrome or Firefox, right? Your web browsers, or hopefully your web browsers. As of right now, those are the only two web browsers I know for sure that the web phone will work with. Our engineers are always looking at expanding that, but there's some technical issues that go on. But basically, you give it a name, you click Create Device, and it's associated with this user. So then what happens is you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net. You use your same login information as you do to log into Dash, right? So your username, your email address, your password's your password, and the account name is your company name. And then you can make and receive calls right from your browser. And again, so both the VirtualPBX soft phone and the web phone, they need to be created here on the user page on a specific user. So that way it's tied to, because they're tied to that particular person. In the web phone case, because it uses the same credentials. In the VirtualPBX soft phones case, it's because we email that person their login information. All right. Next, we got features. So we'll click on the features box here. Okay, caller ID number. This only applies to your users that have their own phone number. Because basically what you're telling them or allowing them to do by enabling this is, hey, use my number as my caller ID when I make outbound calls instead of the main company number. Call forwarding, this is a VoIP phone feature. So you have off, on, or failover mode. Off means you're not using it. Right? On means I'm not going to be by my desk VoIP phone, so send calls to this other device, usually your cell phone. And then failover means my VoIP phone lost connection, but I still want to make sure I get every call that comes to me, so send it to my cell phone. So in failover or on mode, you basically say, hey, I'm going to send it to this particular device. I put +1 area code and phone number, and I click on Save Changes. Now, call forwarding can be set up by the users themselves. You don't need an admin to set it up. You can do so, but the users, they can set up call forwarding either through their user portal, which we'll get to shortly or later, or they can actually do it directly from the VoIP phone using feature codes. Hot desking. This is another VoIP phone feature. This comes into play is if your staff is in a shared office environment where they might be switching desk to desk from day to day, right? So Monday, I sat at desk number 5. Today is Tuesday, and today I am at desk 32. Well, I have different phone, physical phones. They might be the same model, but they're two actually, different phones. I may be on a different computer, what have you. What hot desking allows me to do is from that the phone that I'm sitting at, I use a feature code, in this case *11. Then the system asks me for my hot desk ID, which an admin would set here. I usually just say use your extension number because that's easy to remember. Enter that in, and I'm logged in. What that does is tells the system, say, hey, when calls come to my user, send it to this phone that I just logged into. At the end of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, so calls won't go to that phone while I'm not working. Right? And then the next day, I'm at a different phone again. Again, *11, put my hot desk ID, calls are coming to me where I'm sitting. Voicemail box, again, most users should have a voicemail box, but you don't have to now. Fax box, so you can have individual users have their own fax box. I typically recommend making use of a separate phone number, so it goes straight to the fax box. However, you can set it up as a separate extension number. Right, so you can select a spare number, buy a new one, or select an extension number. And if you do that, it says, here are the extensions you're using, and then create one. But so what happens is someone has to then call your main number. Then they enter the extension number. Then they hit start fax on their fax machine. Either I'm old enough or lazy enough that when I used to use an analog fax machine, I would go up to the fax machine, I'd type in the number, hit send fax, and walk away and go do whatever else I wanted to do. Come back later and check to see if the fax was there. So that's why I typically say just use a separate phone number specifically for the fax if it needs to go to a particular person. Right? This is on top of a main fax box for the whole account. Conference bridge, if you're making use of the conference bridge on the account, put enabled. Here's the phone number. Here's your PIN. The conference room number, and then the PIN number. And this is information that your staff would need to hand out to other people who are going to join the conference. Follow me. This is for use with people with multiple devices. So here, let me get to the default. So, okay. If it was never enabled, this is what it looks like. You then click enabled, and then it shows up as whatever devices, and they're set to do not ring. Right? System doesn't know what you want to do. So then, you uncheck the devices you want to make sure are being utilized. And what normally happens is that the devices are set like this. So then, up here, you've got the ring duration that the system will use to multiple devices. Defaults at 120 seconds, so 2 minutes. The easiest thing to do is click on distribute, and suddenly each device is given 60 seconds. If you don't like that order, you can click and drag. And then you can always adjust the sliders as necessary. And if you do the whole length, this is referred to as blast ringing. Both devices ring the entire time. And then you click on Save Changes. All right. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music. You can click Enable. Again, you can upload a file, 1 megabyte, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. Click on the little up arrow icon, and then click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. If you're making use of call recording, right, first you would enable it. So inbound internal means a call coming in to me from another user on the account. Right, so Bob was calling me because he wanted to talk about something. Inbound external means a call came in from a customer outside of the system, came to me. Outbound internal means I called Bob because I need to talk to him about something else that we didn't cover the first time. And then outbound external means I'm calling a customer, or calling them back, what have you. Right? And then these are all stored on AWS, and there's a link from the dashboard, which we'll get to. And then you have the option to set Do Not Disturb for a particular user. Oops. Yep. Okay, so that was everything. Let's go to groups. So groups, short for ring groups, essentially departments. These have fairly simplistic ringing options or routing options. You click on Add a Group, you give it a name, give it an extension number, and then you add people that you want into it, and then click on Create Group. If we click on this one here for August, you see I have the name here. Now I've got dialing repeats, and there's little arrows here to the right. Basically, how many times can an inbound caller try to reach the people in the group? So in this case, twice. Then after that, the call will end, and I'll have a treatment for that later. Then if you click on Members, these are all the people in the group. Notice I have 120 seconds up top. And in this case, I'm having each person rung that entire time. I can click Distribute, so I ring them in order. And thus I could change the order around, redistribute, or again, I can always set it all back so they're all being rung at the same time, or for the same amount of time. And in fact, I can do something like that even, if I wanted to. Now, one thing to keep in mind about calls that come into a ring group, right? Call comes in, and let's say Jonathan here picks up the call, right? So he's talking, handling a customer. The second call comes into the group, Jonathan will hear a call waiting beep on his phone, even though he's already on a call. And he'll keep hearing it until, say, Duke answers the call. Then he won't hear it anymore. Groups have extensions. This is basically so your staff members can transfer calls to a group. They can have their own phone numbers. So again, call goes directly to the group. Doesn't have to go through that main menu option. And then you've got group features. Call recording. Basically, are you recording calls to the group or not? Enabled means you are, disabled means you're not. Ringback is essentially hold music for the group. And basically, this is while that person is waiting for one of your staff members to pick up, this is what they'll hear. Again, .wave, .mp3, 1 megabyte, recorded in mono. You want to make sure this file is at least as long as that ring duration for the group. So default is 120 seconds. Next action, if no one is able to pick up the call, right, so I had like on this one group, I said dialing retries is 2. So call comes in, it rings everyone once. Came back in a second time, rings everyone a second time. No one was able to pick up. Maybe because they're already on calls, hopefully. Then what do you want the system to do, right? So I have this enabled, and then in this case, I'm sending them to Bob's voicemail box. So that way the inbound caller can leave a message. You can also send them back to the main menu, for example. Allow call forward. This is for your VoIP phone users, right? So if they know they're not going to be at their desks, they can enable that call forwarding, and so calls to the group would still ring to their cell phone, for example. If you don't allow it, then if they're away from their desk, they're simply not going to be answering that call. Caller ID prepend, again, this is for your VoIP phone users. This allows you to put extra text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on their phones, so that way they know what the call is about, right? It gives them a heads up, oh, this is about this particular product. But it only works for VoIP phones. All right, devices, shows you all the devices on the account. Red means it's not registered or not connected to us. Green means we can send calls to it. If you ever see one black, that means you've clicked disabled. So if I do that, it should refresh, and so that web phone is now black. And then you have options here to set it. You can also add devices here. The main things you want to remember is do not add a web phone here, and do not add a VirtualPBX soft phone here. Right? Those you need to do directly on the users. Anything else you can do here. And the typical example is you're setting up a new store location. Your IT guy has all the phones. He doesn't know who's sitting where, but he can at least add the phones to the Dash account, and then once everyone has a desk or whatever, they can then assign the phones to the specific users. Voicemail boxes. You can create your own voicemail boxes here. So this is typically, if you're manually creating a voicemail box, it's for a ring group. So that way it has its own dedicated voicemail box. Again, you give it a name, voicemail box, and a PIN number. Then you can upload a greeting to it. Recorded in mono, .wave, .mp3, 1 megabyte. Recipients, basically you put an email address or email addresses of who's going to get the voicemails for this particular box. And then once you have a greeting in play, you can then click on Already Set Up, and then any of these other options that you see fit, and then you create the new voicemail box. You can always click on the little wrench icon to adjust the PIN number, any of the options, the recipients, or even the greeting media. Greetings. This is the Greetings Manager. So you can see all the greetings that you've already uploaded to the account. You can then download them so you can listen to them, see if you want to keep them. You have a little wrench icon here that you can change the name so it's something a little bit easier for you to understand. And so if you click on the wrench icon next to one, you also have the option to delete a greeting. And then it's gone, right? So it helps you clean up your greetings. Call logs basically show you the call activity on the account. The green arrow to the right means a call that came into the system. You can click on it, see where it rang to. If there's an orange arrow to the left, that means call that one outbound from the system. You can always download this information. Our engineers are working on what we refer to as advanced call reporting, which has more useful information. This is basically raw call data, which can be hard to figure out, whereas with the advanced reporting, you can get things like, oh, when people logged in and out, call durations more easily seen, that sort of thing. Feature codes, these are the feature codes that you use on your VoIP phones. This also gets, we have these on our website, so you can just see them there. All right. Also, as an admin, you've got this 3 horizontal line icon to the top right. So right now we're on dashboard. So then we've got call queues, also referred to as ACD queues for automatic call distribution. This is a call center feature. Now, each queue is $30 per month. So on this account, that's an extra $120 right there. But queues have a couple options. So if you add a new queue, you give it a name. You can choose. Actually, we can get to the settings here on this one here that are already existing. So you give it a name. You give it a phone number if you want, or an extension. And then how do you want the queue to be configured? Routing strategy. In this case, there's 4 options. So this one is set to most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting for a call the longest gets the next call that comes in. You have least offered, which means, so Bob's been offered 5 calls, Mary's been offered 20. Bob gets the next call that comes in because he's had least offers. Now, then the next one is least calls. That's the least amount of connected calls. So if Bob spoke to all 5 of those people, but Mary only spoke to 2 people, the next call that comes in goes to Mary. And then there's round robin, which essentially is random and equals out over time. Hold treatment, basically hold music. And you can upload a file. .wave, .mp3, 1 megabyte in mono. Queue timeout, basically how much time can anyone who comes in wait on hold. Queue call limit, how many people can wait on hold. 0 means unlimited. Now, timeout immediately if empty. That means if you have no agents logged in, just time down any inbound calls immediately. These next 2 are what are we doing when the timeout happens. So I can send it to an escalation queue, which means you would have a second queue, or I can just send it to, in this case, a voicemail box, so the person can leave a message. If you're on the right, we've got agent behavior. So agent recovery time in seconds. Basically, after Bob is finished speaking to someone, how much time does he have before the system will offer him another call? Right, so he has time to get a drink of water, finish up his notes, whatever. Force away on reject or missed calls. So basically, if an agent doesn't answer a call that's offered to them, the system will put them automatically in away mode, meaning that agent needs to mark themselves as ready again to get a call again. And then agent connect timeout. How much time does the system try to reach that agent before it moves on to the next person? So up here, this is, if you make use of queues, your agents will have a queue option to get to. They click here to begin a session. That's them logging into the queue. By default, they're set to away. They click here. They can mark themselves as ready, and now they can take a call in the queue. This little phone icon here, this allows them to select their VoIP devices. By default, it's selecting all of their VoIP devices. Currently, the queues will not send calls to a cell phone or a landline. It will only go send calls to a VoIP phone. A little person with a headset here. This is how you manage members, basically, and you click on Manage Members, and then who do you want that are going to be in the call centers, right? So these are the people that you say, oh, Basically, you click the highlight, you click Add Members, and now they're in the member list. So then if you go back to queues, oh, there we go. I clicked on the wrong thing, didn't I? Yes, I did. You click on the queues, you can then add agents. Oh. And then you would click on save, which unfortunately my streaming software is getting in the way of that. All right, next up is blacklists. This allows you to block calls from reaching your system, but you have to know the caller ID. Right, so you come here, you click Edit Blacklists. If you don't have one, you would click on Add. Otherwise, you would click on an existing list. You give it a name, and then you add a phone number, right? +1 area code and phone number. You click on Save. You go back to Settings, and then you move it over into Selected and click Update. So now any phone numbers on that list, when they try to call my system, they just get a busy tone. I.e., you have someone who is harassing your staff, or if you know, like a particular telemarketer phone number keeps showing up, you can just say, no, you're wasting our time. Right. As an admin, you can get to any fax box on the system. So you can see the inbound faxes that they're getting, as well as the outbound faxes, and you can also see any error message related to outbound faxes, find out why they failed. Here's the user portal. So this is what everyone has access to, admin and standard users alike. Voicemails. So if you set up your voicemail boxes to delete after notification, there'll be no voicemails on that user, right? Because basically the system says, hey, we sent an email out with the voicemail message, so since we sent out that email, we're deleting the voicemail box. And that's important just because voicemail boxes are restricted to 100 messages. Once you hit that, the inbound caller just gets a message, the mailbox is full. Call history, you can see calls you've made and received. Faxes, you can see any faxes. The contact list, this is the various users and extensions on the account. Conference shows you the conference options, right? So you can invite people, other users on the account. You can lock the conference so other people can't join. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference. Also, when you're in conference, there's some particular participant options, including you can mute a particular participant. You can also kick a particular participant. The main thing, though, is the other main thing is settings and devices, because this is where a user can set up their own call forwarding and what phone number they want it to go to, etc. They can also get, as an admin, you get to any voicemail box on the account. And then you also have the option for webhooks. Webhooks is basically making use of APIs to link Dash to other software. That's something you would have to program. That's something, unfortunately, we don't, at least the support team doesn't have a lot of experience in. The monitor doesn't currently work, and the recording manager, that takes you to the AWS to listen to and manage your recordings, which I don't think this was letting me get to. Yep. And so that is everything for the Dash admin training. I'll hang around for a minute or two to see if anyone has any questions. You can just make use of chat. Otherwise, I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Again, I thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.